afternoon. It's Tuesday, February 16th. I'm Laura Cornfield, and this is IBA News, broadcasting from Jerusalem. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is wrapping up his visit to Berlin today, where he met with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. The two leaders held a joint session with members of their cabinets. Among the topics discussed were Israel's settlement activities and a two-state solution. The main purpose of the visit was to tighten security cooperation between Israel and Germany, particularly in the fields of cyber and technology. Netanyahu and his five-minister delegation are due back later tonight. Security forces thwarted yet another terror attack this afternoon. Border policemen arrested a 26-year-old Palestinian resident of Jenin who was carrying a knife near the Damascus gate. During questioning, he confessed to planning to carry out a stabbing attack. Amid what appears to be an upsurge of violence, the Shin Bet Security Service released a summary showing a relative decline in terror attacks over the past month and found that in the past 4 months of unrest, nearly half of the assailants were under the age of 21, with the majority of terror attacks occurring in Judea and Samaria. IBA's Margot Dudkevich reports.
January saw a decrease in the number of terror attacks compared with the previous month of December, with a total of 169 attacks compared to 246. Details revealed in the Shin Bet Security Agency report refers to the period from October 1st last year until February the 10th this year, in which a total of 228 terror attacks and attempted attacks took place. The start of the wave of violence began with the murders of Naama and Eitam Henkin in a drive-by shooting near the settlement of Itamar in Samaria. 5 Israelis were killed in January, 3 in the Tel Aviv shooting rampage by Israeli Arab Nashat Milchem at the beginning of the month, and 2 women in stabbing attacks in Judea and Samaria. Daphne Meir in Otniel near Hebron, and Shlomit Kriegman in Beit Haron. So far this month, 1 Israeli has been killed. Border policewoman Hadar Cohen was shot by terrorists outside the old city's Nablus gate in a shooting and stabbing attack. 80% of the terrorists were residents of the West Bank, mainly from the Hebron area, and 25% hailed from Ramallah and the surrounding areas. 21 attackers were Palestinians who entered Israel illegally. Attacks emanating from the Gaza Strip saw 7 rockets fired at southern Israel in January, out of a total of 31 since the current round of violence erupted in October last year. Defense officials expressed cautious optimism that the current upsurge in violence can and will be contained. However, IDF Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot recently said that the issue this time around is much more complex, since most of the attacks are carried out by lone wolves, terrorists acting on their own, who are not part of any organized terror group. Margot Dudkevich, IBA News.
The Knesset Law Committee has postponed a review of the so-called suspension law. The proposed legislation by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seeks to vote out MKs who express support for terror, make racist comments, or incite. Netanyahu's initiative, which requires a majority of at least 90 Knesset members, drew harsh criticism from President Reuven Rivlin. Speaking on the issue yesterday, Rivlin said the proposal violates the parliament's purpose in democracy and goes against the Knesset's role as a representative of the people. The president stressed that we cannot allow MKs to independently overturn the public's choice. Among other Knesset members who also voiced objections was Knesset Speaker Yuli Edelstein. Speaking at a closed forum of the Israel Democracy Institute, the prominent Likud member declared the bill will never be approved as long as he is the speaker.
There was no discussion about any legislation in the Institution Committee. There was what we call in this country a balagan in the Constitution Committee, but there was no legislation ever that was tabled, that appeared in any form in the legal office of the Knesset, that was in any way printed by anyone in the Knesset. There was a discussion, by the way, everyone got their fair share. Those who claimed that they are proposing that and those who vocally opposed it, so you can't do much about it. Everyone was very happy on both sides.
The Knesset's Law Committee was due to review the legislation today, but agreed to postpone any decision until Netanyahu returns from abroad. The move came after the Knesset's Ethic Committee suspended Balad Knesset members Jamal Zachalka, Hanin Zoabi, and Basel Ghatas from parliamentary activities for 2 months after they met with families of terrorists in Ramallah and stood in a moment of silence for Palestinian terrorists killed by Israeli security forces. Despite the opposition, Netanyahu said he is intent to pass the bill and expressed confidence that all members of his coalition will vote in favor. President of the Israel Democracy Institute, Yochanan Plesner, presented a different view. Speaking with IBA's Ari O'Sullivan, Plesner said the suspension bill was not meant to be passed, but is rather like throwing meat to the public discourse.
Response has to be smart and measured and not triggered by emotions and anger, and this response is not sensible.
It seems that a country that can vote out other members of the parliament who've been voted in, that doesn't sound very democratic to me.
Well, once you provide a tool for members of Knesset to suspend their fellow MKs, you're adding a political tool to the arena that can skew and adversely affect the democratic process. It does not make any sense to provide judicial-type authorities to MKs that have no judicial competence.
Mr. Plesner, the president of Israel, Reuven Rivlin, as well as the speaker of the Knesset, Yuli Edelstein, also came out against this bill. What is that saying? Is there a rift here?
I think that even those who initiated this bill are not necessarily interested in it being completed in the legislation process. It's in many times a way to throw some red meat to the public discourse, understanding that there's a public anger and you want to address it and raise an emotion of support. And while those who initiated, I think, are intelligent enough to understand that it doesn't make any sense to provide MKs with this lethal political tool that can be then targeted at other MKs, not necessarily Balad MKs, but just political wheelings and dealings that we will end up suspending each other.
What should be done if not a suspension bill?
No, we have legal processes. First of all, there's an anti-incitement bill. We're actually here at the Democracy Institute working on proposals to further define, come up with more concrete scenarios of what incitement and incitement both for terror and racism are all about, so we can sharpen and strengthen the tools that deal with incitement, and that we know that if MKs engage in incitement and they are indicted, then once convicted, their term will expire automatically.
We're marking now about 10 years of total leadership by Benjamin Netanyahu of the country. 10 years is a long time to be leader of this country. Is there a threat to democracy that one person can rule for so long?
I tend to oppose term limits, although I can also acknowledge their importance, because if you know that your time in office is limited, then you're busy achieving or affecting the country and working on your legacy rather than on preserving your time in office.
Well, the West has seen a lot of leaders rule for extended periods of Putin, Merkel, Obama. Well, maybe this is just what's the trend now.
What we're seeing now in the Western world, given the flood of media and social media and transparency, that I think it might affect having shorter terms, because people in a way get tired of their leaders faster. And I think the person that really understands that is David Cameron, that he defined term limits for himself, and he wants to be gone before his second term, in a way before the public, the British public falls out of love with him. He prefers to go on his own terms. So maybe he figured out something about our new era.
Rabbi Yosef Pinto has begun his year-long sentence at the Nitzan Prison Medical Center in Ramleh after being convicted of bribery. He arrived at the facility this afternoon, surrounded by several of his followers. Prior to setting out for jail, Pinto, who suffers from cancer, underwent treatment at Hadassah Hospital. The rabbi was convicted of bribing a senior police officer and other corruption offenses and pled guilty in a plea bargain. Last month, the Supreme Court rejected his appeal to convert his jail sentence to 6 months community service because of his ill health. Speaking to his followers last night, Pinto declared, "They are not breaking our spirit. We are just turning a page, and the way of God will be our true victory." Turkey and Israel appear to be close to signing a compensation agreement for the 9 activists killed during the Israeli commando raid on the Mavi Marmara in May 2010. This according to a spokesman for Turkey's ruling AK party, who announced the move during an interview on Turkish television. Ties between the two countries reached an all-time low following the Mavi Marmara incident, but recent reports indicate that while some issues still need to be resolved, reconciliation efforts are underway. Delegations from both countries have been meeting in Switzerland in an attempt to restore ties. France has begun preparations for an international summit that aims to jumpstart peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians in the summer. The French ambassador in Israel today met with foreign ministry officials and presented them with details of the new French peace initiative. Last month, French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius mentioned Paris's proposal to launch talks, saying his country intends to recognize a Palestinian state if the effort fails. According to French officials, Paris has encouraged 20 of its ambassadors around the world to present the proposal to foreign ministries in Washington, London, Berlin, Moscow, and other capitals in Europe and the Arab world. The officials said the Palestinians have already responded positively to the plan. The Knesset's committee has approved a move to limit the amount of no-confidence motions by opposition parties to 10 each year rather than each week. In order to soften the blow, government ministers, including the Prime Minister, will be summoned to spontaneously respond to questions submitted by the lawmakers. The committee's decision yesterday was the result of discussions led by Coalition Chairman Tzachi Hanegbi and Zionist Camp Chairwoman Merav Michaeli. The sides agreed to initiate a question hour, something that has never been done before in the Knesset, but is popular in foreign parliaments, including Britain. Turning to the field of medical innovations and a newly developed Israeli bandage that aims to save lives in cases of severe bleedings. The method could potentially be used where conventional treatment procedures fail to stop a deadly hemorrhage. The bandage, called wound clot, not only stops severe bleedings within minutes, but also enhances the blood's natural process of clotting. All this without the need to apply direct pressure on the injury. Developers of the unique sealant say uncontrolled bleedings are the #1 cause of death in the battlefield.
We are replacing very, very expensive products because where our product doesn't have any active ingredients in it. It just works on a physical level, on a biological level, on a physiological level. That's what it does. But it does it so efficiently that in many cases we replace products that have active ingredients that are supposed to promote coagulation.
This is our trauma product. It comes in a long ribbon. When we place it into the wound, in this case this is only water, but when it's exposed to liquids, this product starts to absorb enormous amount of blood, and then it transforms into a gel state. The special molecular structure actually holds the whole physical structures together with the blood that absorbed within the product, and allowing the blood to remain active to help the wound to clot and stop bleeding.
In financial news, Partner Communications officially unveiled its new brand today after splitting from the French global telecom giant Orange. At today's press conference in Tel Aviv, Partner unveiled its new logo with the green and blue, replacing the orange and black colors, and the name of Orange changed to Partner. Company CEO Itzhak Benisti said Partner has become a digital company that will make its capabilities accessible to consumers. Last year, a media uproar was sparked over comments made by Orange Telecom CEO, who said he was prepared to end cooperation with Partner and leave Israel if he could. Briefly in local money matters, shares were mixed on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, while the shekel weakened in foreign currency trading. Here are the late afternoon numbers.